The argument I make is you need prospecting, you need marketing, but you also need to add a third plan. And the third plan that you're going to add to your overall sales strategy or your sales umbrella is a referral plan. But think about this. The mentality is not short term, it's longer term. The activities you're going to do are going to look entirely different than prospecting and marketing, and your messaging will be entirely different because the end user of a referral plan is never a prospect. You don't know who the prospects are. All you know are who the referral sources are. So a referral plan is going to be planned outreach to cultivate and deepen the relationships you have with your referral sources, which means the messaging is never salesy, it is never promotional, it is never gimmicky, and it is about deepening and strengthening this relationship that you have with them and doing it in a way that allows you to be memorable and meaningful and to make sure they know that you're thankful for what they're doing for your business, which is sending you referrals and staying top of mind so that we are kind of building this experience around how we take care of them and planting referral seeds with the language that we use so they think about us from a referral perspective. This is not a build it and they will come. This is a build it and execute on it and make sure you're following the process correctly, and then they will come.
Ready? Ready to rock and roll? Is that action? All right. Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Absolutely. Go. Go.
Hello, everybody. It's Jason Will with
Go.
This is a real estate podcast, but we talk about leadership, personal growth, and becoming the best version of yourself. Leadership, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Growth, best version of yourself.
Go.
So this is a real estate podcast.
All right. Well, Stacey Brown Randall, welcome to the Impact Agent podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much, Jason, for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So you are a coach, so you're definitely an impact agent. You're making impact on people's lives. So is that predominantly salespeople, you would say?
You know, it's interesting. I find that there are two types of people that are typically attracted to my method and to my message as well. And that are people who, mostly business owners. And I think realtors are business owners. I don't care if you actually, are under a company flag or not. But I would say it's business owners that have either been over-taught how to sell and then business owners who have been under-taught how to sell. That typically seems to be who I'm working with. So over-taught how to sell is those that you get into your business like a financial advisor or a real estate agent or an insurance agent or a loan officer, and then you are over-taught how to make the sales process work or over-trained. And then if you're on the other side of it, you get into business because you're great at something like being an attorney or an architect or an interior designer or a CPA, and you don't have a clue about sales because that's not something they taught you. So those are the folks that I typically work with that are attracted to what I teach.
It's interesting, some of those folks, attorneys and some of these other professions you mentioned, they don't think of themselves as being in sales, but they absolutely are.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of times that people that are in sales, they know they're in sales, even though they act like maybe they're not. They secretly just prefer not to look at it from a sales perspective because unfortunately sales just has such that ick factor and that, I don't want to be doing that's not fun. That's not easy. I think sales has gotten a bad rap over the years from that perspective. I think if you're doing it right, then it's not that bad. And definitely referrals makes selling 1,000 times easier. But yes, I think anybody that is responsible for bringing in clients, whether that is directly into your business or into a company, it doesn't matter. You are in sales. And if you have to persuade anyone to do anything, really, sales is a part of your life.
That's a good definition. So tell us a little bit about how long you've been in coaching and how you got into coaching.
So, I have this really fascinating story. At least that's what I tell myself, because I truly believe that it is what happened in my past that put me to where I am here today. It's the whole reason why we get to have this conversation, specifically about a topic that definitely piques people's interest because they're like, wait, it's not just referrals, it's referrals without asking. That's different. But I can't say that I woke up one day and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go figure out how to generate referrals without asking. And then I'm going to go teach people how to do that. That's going to be what I'm going to do next. I actually had to learn it the hard way. And I think that's what makes my story a little bit more interesting is that I actually had a business that failed. I ran an HR consulting firm for 4 years. I had big name clients like KPMG and BDO, two of the larger accounting firms, Ally Bank, and some others. And that business would fail after 4 years. I'd have to find myself back in corporate America getting a job because I needed to make money. And so I remember thinking in my corporate job, yeah, I'm meant to be an entrepreneur, and there's some things I have to figure out how to do better if I don't want to have a second business failure. And one of those was really, how do I fill the pipeline? How do I fill the pipeline of prospects, of people who have the potential of saying yes to working with me, which is every single person's concern when they are in sales, and whatever that looks like for them. When they're trying to bring in clients to their company, the number one thing is, do I have enough people to have conversations with? And so I knew if I didn't fix that, business number 2 would end up in the graveyard like business number 1. And I wasn't willing to let that happen. So when I was paying attention to how I was going to structure business number 2 differently and planning my escape route, right, from corporate America, I really paid attention to, okay, how do we fill the funnel? Well, how did you do it with the first company? You had some clients and big ones too, right? Like, how did you fill that funnel with the first company? And I went back and I looked at how I brought in all of my clients over the 4 years. And I realized that a lot of them happened because I was always hustling. I was networking. I was in every possible group available from a networking perspective. I was president of as many of them as I could be. And, fast forward, and that I was actually starting to have children when all that was happening too. And so fast forward to when I started my second business, I was like, I got too many kids. We have 3. I was like, I got too many kids to be out there networking and hustling every night of the week. I was like, I got to figure out a different way. And that's when I really started paying attention to referrals, because everyone's like, they're amazing, right? They just show up and they're like, here, Jason, take my money. I'm ready to work with you, right? I've been referred. I already trust you. Let's do this. And I was like, okay, get me some of those. Well, the advice out there is, hey, if you want them, great, just go ask. But the majority of us, when we think about actually having to look somebody in the eye that we know and then ask them for a referral, right? we'd rather go run a marathon. We're like, no thanks. I don't want to ask somebody for a referral. And so I thought to myself, why is that the only advice out there if 90-something% of us don't want to do it? So when I started my second business, one of the things I set out to do was, let's just guinea pig the heck out of this business to figure out, yes, I'll use some of the traditional ways of bringing in clients, but also let's see if I can guinea pig and figure out how to bring in referrals. And in my first year with my second business, which was a business and productivity coaching practice, in my first year with my second business, I brought in 112 referrals. And consistently have done that every year since. And we're here looking at, 8 years are now behind us, consistently bringing in lots and lots of referrals that I don't ask for. And so it was probably about, 6 or 7 years ago, I had clients started saying, okay, how are you growing so fast? What does this look like? And I was like, oh, well, I am getting all these referrals. It's great. And they're like, okay, thanks for the productivity coaching. We love your email tips, but I really, really, really need to know how to get those referrals without asking. I started teaching that. And now, of course, we've had hundreds and hundreds of students go through the process. And when I had to teach those first couple of clients, I had to reverse engineer what I was doing in my own business. And then I realized, oh, look at that. There's some steps and I follow them consistently. And there's like a system here. And so I built out the system and haven't really looked back. And since then, we've been teaching hundreds and hundreds of students, not just realtors, but in a number of different industries all across the world. We're in 9 countries now, just teaching people who want to generate referrals, but want to do it in a way that honors who they are and the person that is going to give them those referrals. So they want to do it without asking.
Wow, that's huge. The impact you're having on all these people's lives, they may have gotten out of whatever industry they're in, or you're taking their business to a level where they can afford a bigger life, things they probably thought, goals that they thought they could never achieve. So that's pretty powerful. Now, so I think you've defined a referral, but I wanted to make sure that we just kind of hone in on that definition very, very clearly for the audience. So how do you, Stacey Brown Randall, define a referral?
So a referral has 2 parts, but let me explain to you where this definition comes from, and then I'll give you the 2 parts that define a referral. So think about, Jason, when someone says to you, hey, I'm going to refer you somebody, why is it that you are really excited about that prospect? Like for yourself, when they're like, hey, I got somebody who needs to buy a house. Like, why is it for you that you get excited about knowing you're about to receive a referral?
It's a relationship I don't have to cultivate. And like you said, it's this warm transfer of trust. They already trust me because they trust the person who's referring them. And, I don't have to do anything to earn that trust. It's just already kind of pre-baked in.
Right. And because that trust has been transferred, which you said perfectly, because that trust has been transferred, that makes that prospect quicker to close, easier to close, and less price sensitive, which, and of course, in the real estate world is less sensitive to your 3% or whatever your commission is, right? Wherever you are,
Right.
they're less sensitive to it. They're like, okay, it's got it. This is how much it costs, like from the perspective of the commission amount. Okay, perfect. And then they're just quicker and easier to close. So when we say referral, we all get why we want them. And we're all typically on the same page. Yes, the prospect comes in. It's just easier to work with them. It's easier to get them to a yes. It's faster to get them to saying yes. And they don't like haggle and nickel and dime me, right? Because they already trust me. So there's value and credibility built in. So if that's what we're looking for when we get a referral, and those are the reasons why we want them, then the argument is made that there are two reasons why that referral shows up in a way that we want them. Number one is there's always a personal connection. That transfer of trust cannot be transferred if someone is not connecting you with the prospect, right? So it's not, and I hear a lot of people say, well, someone told me that they were talking about me and that person's going to follow up with me. That feels so close to a referral, but it's not. It's actually word of mouth buzz because you weren't personally connected to that prospect. Mm-hmm. And so that's a really important piece for us to keep in mind is that there's got to be a personal connection. So if it's a referral, you're always going to be connected to the prospect by your referral source. And some people call them referral partners. I call them referral sources. So you're always going to be connected to the prospect by your referral source. So if you're not connected, right, but you know someone's out there saying great things about you and telling people to hire you, that's just word of mouth or word of mouth buzz. And so it's close, but it's not a referral. The second thing a referral has to have is need identified, which means there is no need for me to talk to you, right, in a business setting if I am never going to sell my house. So there has to be a need identified. The prospect has to know, hey, I'm being connected to Jason because I need help with real estate, right? I got to do something with my house or I need to get a new home or whatever it is, right? And so there's a need identified, which means the prospect knows they're a prospect. They know they're in buyer's mentality mode. So when they show up ready to go, it's because they already know I got this problem and now Jason's going to solve it for me. And so there has to be a need identified. Lots of times you may get connected to people, but you don't know why you're being connected. You're like, well, do they need a realtor? Or is this just for me to grow my network and meet one more person for coffee? Like, why am I being connected? And that's because need hasn't been identified. So if you get connected to somebody and by a referral source or someone else connects you to someone, it's actually just an introduction. Because if there isn't a need identified that says this person needs real estate help, right, needs to hire a realtor, then it's not a referral. So referral is always going to have personal connection and always going to have a need identified, which means a referral is different from word of mouth buzz, an introduction, and then of course also a warm lead. And a warm lead is like, hey, you should call these people because they really need to sell their house. There's no true need actually been identified because we don't know that that's actually happened. And there's no connection. So like now it's just calling someone because I may be able to use somebody else's name and says, hey, by the way, Stacey says you need to sell your house. Like, do they really want to hear from you? So people take these ideas of warm leads where you're told to contact somebody, or word of mouth buzz where they're talking about you, they're just not connecting you, or introductions where they're connecting you, but you don't know why. You don't know if anyone needs to actually hire you as a realtor. At the end of the day, those are not referrals. They are different types of prospects, and you need to be able to identify them coming in, mainly because when you get a referral, I want you to be like, I got a referral. Now I know I get to speak differently, I get to act differently, and I get to have different expectations versus if it's just word of mouth buzz, an introduction, or a warm lead.
Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit more because you're talking really about a different language that you use with a different type of prospect, a different expectation that you have with a different type of prospect. So if you can identify that prospect, then you can identify the language you need to use, the expectations you need to have, the outcome you need to focus on. So let's do this. Most of the people I coach and train and interact with on a daily basis are real estate agents, and they need paint by numbers instructions. So can you identify the types of prospects or how we identify them and kind of break that down for us a little bit more?
Sure. So this is what I always tell folks. You're looking for those two key pieces. Anytime a prospect comes in the door, right? And I'm using air quotes that no one can see, but I say in the door, I don't mean physically in your door. But when a prospect comes in the door, you need to be able to identify the source of that prospect. Now, what's really easy are the things that come through, Facebook ads, or they filled out a form, or they called into your office and you were working the phones and you happened to answer the phone, or you're calling a for sale by owner, or you're calling an expired listing, right? It's very clear to understand that you're doing outreach to those people to turn them into prospects. It's on the same side of that. When you have someone who actually sends you an email and connects you to a prospect, you need to be able to identify, okay, are the two parts there? I've been connected by this referral source to this buyer, and is the need been identified? And typically this is going to happen over email, though it could happen over a text thread. And very rarely now, of course, it's going to happen in person, but it certainly could happen in person as well. And so the idea is that you are going to be actually connected to the prospect. So in an email, that's what this is going to look like. It's going to be like, hey, Jason, my neighbor, Sarah, is looking to downsize now that her kids have gone off to college. And I told her she absolutely had to hire you because you're the best agent I've ever known. And so Sarah's copied on this email so that you can reach out to her. Like that is exactly what it's, pretty close to exactly what it'll look like when you receive a referral. Sarah's copied on the email. We know that she needs to sell and that you have been told that you're the agent that she needs to be hiring. So your outreach to Sarah is going to look way, way different because now you know Sarah's already interested. And so that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those two key parts. Just to be able to identify those two key parts will tell you if you have a referral. But if you are out walking your dog one morning and a neighbor is, watering their grass and they're like, oh, Jason, before you go, by the way, I was talking to a coworker and he told me he was looking to buy a new house. And so I told him all about you and I gave him your contact information and he's totally going to reach out. I need you to recognize in that moment, your neighbor has done word of mouth buzz. Right? Because the connection is now missing and they've only talked about this coworker who you don't have any idea who this coworker is and you are not in the driver's seat of following up, right? So it's the concept of you being able to recognize in the moment, do I have personal connection and need identified? And if I'm missing any of them, right? And this is one of the things I teach my students in my Growth by Referrals program. If I'm missing any of that, what's the language I need to use to flip that into a referral? And ultimately what you're looking to do is have the piece that's missing, right? Is like being able to figure out the piece that's missing. So in word of mouth buzz, we know what's missing is the connection, right? So you need to have the connection happen, right? Or it's not going to be a referral. You're just going to sit around and wait for your neighbor's colleague from work to eventually get around to calling you. And in the meantime, he's probably talked to a bunch of other people who know realtors too. And so it's your ability to identify what's missing and then fill that gap so that you can actually get the connection and the need identified. And that's typically going to happen over email.
Yeah, so you mentioned waiting, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up here very shortly, but that's what I see most real estate agents that fail or have very limited success, to put it politely, that they just do a lot of waiting. So we've got these two concepts here at play. You're telling me and my audience that you can generate referrals without asking, and I think a lot of agents would find some false confidence in that and go, all right, she's telling me I need to wait. But is this generating this process of generating referrals? Is it, a contact sport? Is it proactive or is it reactive?
Yeah. So here's what I would say. Referrals are always going to be a contact sport. They're just going to look different than what you've been told the contact should look like. But I would say to the idea of being able to flip word of mouth buzz, an introduction, or a warm lead into referral, you're not waiting. There's no waiting involved. It's you having the right language to identify what's missing and then flipping that by using the right language to be able to get what's missing, right? So if it's the connection, you know how to get the connection in so that you can actually get that referral. The worst thing you could do is be like, that was word of mouth buzz. Now let me cross my fingers and see if it actually comes in. I want you to be active and proactive and know the language to use to be able to be like, that was a word of mouth buzz. Here's exactly what I'm going to say right now in the moment back to my neighbor as he waters his grass to be able to do the best I can to flip that into a referral, which means you need him to make the connection. So I always tell folks, we're trying to save the lost referrals as like one layer to our strategy because they're there and people just don't know how to like get it, like grasp it. Now, there's one thing to say in the moment, You are so close to getting a referral. How do you make it into a referral? That's one piece. But the other part of this is like, what do you do to be able to consistently generate referrals from your referral sources or turn people that you want referring you into referral sources? And that is also a completely and totally contact sport, but it's what we build and it's how we do it and it's why we do it that ultimately makes it work. So if you think about how you're taught sales strategy, right? How almost everybody has been taught sales strategy. And I don't mean like we teach sales strategy this way for like the last 10 years. I mean like decades, probably generations. We have taught that your sales strategy has two parts. You have a prospecting plan and you have a marketing plan. And just about everything you're going to do under the umbrella of sales is going to either be prospecting in nature or marketing in nature. So prospecting in nature can be calling the expired listings or the for sale by owners. It can be doing a direct mail campaign to a neighborhood, to farm a neighborhood, right? It can be going to networking events. It can be joining leads groups. Those are prospecting activities that agents can do. And so from that perspective, prospecting has a short-term mentality, and you do them because you're trying to get to someone to say yes to working with you, right? That's why you go to the networking events and you farm a neighborhood and you pick up the phone and call expireds. So from that perspective, if prospecting has a short-term mentality, the end user then is always the prospect. You are calling an expired listing to talk to somebody who tried to sell their house and it didn't happen to see if you can get the listing, right? It's a short-term mentality, and the end user of your phone call to that expired is the prospect, is the person who may say, yes, you can try to list my house, right? That is where, when we look at prospecting, that's where the asking advice and the paying for advice has always come from. And I'm not talking about a realtor refers you a client. That's above board and is completely common and, happens a lot in the real estate world. And that's a good thing, right? I'm talking about like that kickback behind the door. I don't see as much of this in real estate as I do in like some other industries, but it's like that behind the scenes, like, hey, by the way, I'll slip you some money, right? Or I'll slip you a bonus if you give me some referrals. So, but it's that asking advice has a very short-term mentality to it. And that's why it sits in the asking advice for referrals sits into the prospecting plan. The other side of your sales strategy is your marketing plan. That's having a website, maybe doing social media, maybe doing some thought leadership or trying to earn some PR. Maybe you're going to sponsor some events, right? So then there's marketing that you do that has a little bit longer term mentality, but the end user of your marketing message is still the prospect, right? You're hoping to have that booth at that trade shows that someone would walk up and decide, hey, I need to have a conversation with you. And so when you think about this, the end user of both your prospecting and your marketing are always going to be the prospect, which means your messaging and marketing is very sales oriented. The argument I make is you need prospecting, you need marketing, but you also need to add a third plan. And the third plan that you're going to add to your overall sales strategy or your sales umbrella is a referral plan. But think about this. The mentality is not short term, it's longer term. The activities you're going to do are going to look entirely different than prospecting and marketing, and your messaging will be entirely different because the end user of a referral plan is never a prospect. You don't know who the prospects are. All you know are who the referral sources are. So a referral plan is going to be planned outreach to cultivate and deepen the relationships you have with your referral sources, which means the messaging is never salesy, it is never promotional, it is never gimmicky, and it is about deepening and strengthening this relationship that you have with them and doing it in a way that allows you to be memorable and meaningful and to make sure they know that you're thankful for what they're doing for your business, which is sending you referrals, and staying top of mind so that we are kind of building this experience around how we take care of them and planting referral seeds with the language that we use so they think about us from a referral perspective.
Can you give us an example of a referral seed?
Sure. So here's the easiest one I think that everybody can use. So if we have any agents that are listening to this and like, I've never gotten a referral, right? Like they may be like, I don't even know if I've ever received a referral or would even know what it looks like to plant a referral seed. Here's one that everyone can use regardless if you have referral sources or not. So if you think about going, or like now I know we're doing them all virtual, we're getting on Zoom, and some states have opened up where you can go back and do socially distanced networking events. So those things have been happening over the last 7 or 8 months. And so the idea from that perspective is one of the most common questions you're always going to be asked, whether you are walking the dog in the morning and run into somebody in your neighborhood, or you're at a virtual networking event, or you're standing in line at Starbucks, right? If you're going to have a conversation with someone, a common question is always, hey, Jason, how's business? It is a common question. And I know for agents, you guys sometimes get a lot, hey, how's the market going? Like, what's it looking like right now? And it's your ability to take that question and not say what everybody else says. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's good. Oh, we're really moving into a buyer's market. Oh, we are mastering this seller's market. Like those are common responses, which is actually a missed opportunity to plant a referral seed. What I would rather you say when someone says, hey, Jason, how's business going? I'd rather you be like, hey, you know what's really good? The market is at a very unique and interesting place. But what I have found is that when I'm looking back over the last couple of clients I've had the opportunity to work with, they've all come by referral and they've been referred to me by other clients. And that just kind of keeps my business trucking along at a great pace. Now, here's the thing. You've planted a referral seed by talking about the fact that your last few clients have come in by referral. But this cannot be a lie. Like you actually have to know that you brought clients in recently by referral. So for some people, it's like you kind of need to be aware of the clients you're getting in the door. Like where are they coming from? You should be tracking the stuff so that when someone asks you that question, you know whether it's, hey, this year, over 50% of my clients have come by referral, or the last quarter, or when I look back at the growth, like let's just say you're having this conversation with someone in January of 2021, right? When I look back at the growth that I had in 2020, even in that crazy, crazy year, right? When I look back at my business growth, I realized that, 70% of my clients came to me by referral. What you're saying is, hey, so you're not saying, hey, so you got any referrals for me? We're just planting a very subtle referral seed with someone. And what we're hoping for is that we can then have a dialogue over referrals. Oh my gosh, that's great, Jason, that you're getting so many referrals. What do you think? What do you think is making that happen? And now we're in a conversation of them thinking about you from a referral perspective. Sometimes the conversation will not go anywhere. I'd be like, I'm so glad business is good. Great to see you. Bye. Right. And that may be it. We don't always know when we plant a referral seed like that, if it's going to fall on concrete and die, or if it's going to actually fall on the ground and actually be able to have an opportunity to grow into something. And so the idea here is understanding how we plant referral seeds. And we do it in a way, we do it at different times. We do it while we're networking and we're trying to see, hey, if I plant some referral seeds with you, will that maybe stoke you and have you thinking about referring me? We also do it with our referral sources when we're doing our referral plan and we're doing outreach to our referral sources, right? What does that planting those referral seeds look like for them? And then when we've clearly identified people that we want to refer us, right? We're following a process to plant referral seeds with them. Once you get, and I always tell this to my growth by referral students, once you get the language piece down, it becomes just part of your vernacular, right? It's like your ability to know what, when you first get into real estate, maybe you have no idea what some of the acronyms are. And eventually you sound like a genius because you can say it all. It's no different with planting referral seeds and being able to use the referral seed language, but it's the ability to recognize the opportunities to use it. And we use referral seeds in a layered approach because your referral strategy and your referral plan should be a layered approach.
All right. So this is fascinating. So just got my realtor hat on and I'm just looking at opportunities here for just subtle tweaks. So instead of saying, I just listed this property, I just sold this property, I just closed this property, when it's applicable, you could say, I just listed another referral. I just sold another home by referral from one of my trusted referral partners, or saying, listen, I'm having the best year I've ever had in real estate. I've sold this, I've pended this is my volume. Instead of touting the numbers, you say, listen, and 70% of that, you just add this dialogue, like 70% of that came from referrals. So you're just constantly, social media, all your marketing message includes the word referral.
Yeah, so here's the thing. You can definitely use that concept of, and the percentage that's come by referrals in your marketing messages and your social media. I think you need to be careful how often you overuse it. I typically don't tell people to use referral language in their marketing or prospecting messaging, only because then it makes it sound salesy because your whole marketing message is salesy. But absolutely, if you are posting about these new home buyers that you just help buy their home, this is how I would rather you make that social. So let's talk specifically about a social media post, right? Yeah. So you're going to post on social media that you just helped these new first-time home buyers buy their first house, but they were referred to you by a previous client you had. So the social media post should look more like this. Congratulations to so-and-so, right? They're tagged so-and-so on their first home purchase. So excited to help them on their real estate journey and become homeowners for the first time. This would not have been possible without tagging the referral source, the old client, without my previous client so-and-so referring them to me. So excited that my amazing clients help me work with other amazing clients. Just take that, steal it, and go put it in your social media post. If it's real, right? Like if it's true. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's more about it's the gratitude messaging that comes behind it. It's the intent behind the gratefulness and the gratitude. Should every social media post have that? No, because the truth is most of the time when you talk about referral generation in a very broad terms, it's not going to have the intended impact. It's with the identification of existing referral sources or potential referral sources, or trying to figure out in a networking event, is there a potential to have a conversation with someone about referrals, because then maybe they could become a referral source. It's very much a one-to-one type of contact sport in that regards. But yes, you could absolutely use that referral seed language in some of your social media posts, because it does start, the messaging is there from that perspective. But here's the thing. If you think you can put out a whole bunch of social media posts about clients you've helped that have been referred to you, and that's going to unleash some crazy referral explosion for you, that is not how it works. It is a great step in the process. What you need to do is you need to get really clear on who are your existing referral sources first, then build out a referral plan to take care of them, where you have an opportunity to plant referral seeds by being memorable and meaningful and making sure they know how much you appreciate them because they refer you, and making sure that you're taking care of those referral sources once you know who they are, and you're creating a system and a process around that. And then also realizing, hey, I probably need some more referral sources. Now I've got a process and a system to turn people into referral sources. Like, it is a layered approach when we think about making our referral generation work for us. But like, if I'm thinking about a realtor who's been in my program since 2017, and I remember a conversation we had, and she was like, okay, so what you're asking me to do doesn't feel weird, so I know I'm actually willing to do it. And she started doing it, and she was like, it was really fun to take care of my referral sources in this way, and then to start seeing more referrals come in, and then to start hitting double digits in referrals received. And that's the goal, right? I mean, every explosion of referrals is going to start with a trickle and then snowball to an explosion, but not because you're willy-nilly just posting stuff on social media. There's a strategy and a plan behind it, and there's a layered approach that we take, because ultimately the ability to get referrals in I wouldn't say quicker and faster, because it's different for everybody, but in a more sustained and consistent way, it's going to be because you've identified your referral sources and you have a plan to take care of them, a very specific type of plan to take care of them in a way that allows you to plant referral seeds. And then also you're doing some of these other things that are just kind of strengthening your overall referral strategy.
I love it that you just nailed that down to like specific. If you're going to do a post or some sort of promotional piece, it's got to be specific. It's got to be authentic. And really the foundation of it needs to be centered around this gratitude messaging. So I love that. All right. So I've got two concepts here in my notes, and I'm going to need your help identifying them. One is the big miss, and the other is head trash. What does all that mean?
Yeah. So I think that let's start with head trash, right? I think the one thing, particularly with agents, that they get stuck on is that there are a lot of sales training type coaching programs that are out there. And they kind of start following one methodology. And in some areas, it really, really works for them until they get to the referral piece. And there are a lot of coaches and companies and organizations out there that teach referrals to realtors, and they typically teach it one very specific way, and that's the asking way. And so for the agent that's sitting there thinking, yeah, but I don't want to ask for referrals, what they're being told is, well, if you won't ask, then you're just going to go make more cold calls or pound the pavement or do more networking, because you can't get referrals without asking. And it is this belief that then they get stuck up in their own heads, and they've got this head trash around, well, if I won't ask, I can't get them, so I guess I've got to leave them to chance and hope that I get some. And okay, now I got to hustle to get more clients because I've got to go network a ton or make cold calls. And the reality that I think that people get stuck in from a head trash perspective is, just because the asking advice has been around for longer than you've probably been in real estate, and I'm talking to the agent who's been in real estate like 30, 40, 50 years, right? Longer than you've been in real estate, this messaging has been around. It doesn't mean it's the only option you have. There are multiple ways to generate referrals. Unfortunately, in real estate, one of the most talked about, and seems to be like everyone's doing it, is the asking. Trust me, most people aren't doing it, right? But there's asking, there's paying, there's being overly promotional and gimmicky, right? Or there's just waiting for it to happen. Well, there's another option if you're interested in how to generate referrals. But I find when I start working with somebody there are still people who go through my program and they're like, okay, so then at what point are you going to tell me I have to ask? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to say that. You have to get over that head trash. Like asking is not, hear me, not a part of the equation. So head trash is big. And I see it more in my agents than I do, say, my attorneys or my CPAs, because they haven't been overly saturated with the asking methodology and sales training, right? And so I see it much more with my real estate agents, with my financial advisors, my loan officers, and my insurance agents, because they've just been overtaught. So that's the head trash piece. And I think when it comes down to the big miss that agents have in their business, is that they just don't take the time to look back over their data. Like take some time, reverse engineer it, go back in and look at, where do your clients actually come from? Where do they actually come from? What's the source? What's the lead generation source of where your clients actually come from? And I always find that when people will sit down and go back and be like, okay, so I had 16 transactions this year so far. Where did all those people come from? And I had 27 transactions last year, or you had 12, whatever. The numbers are relevant to me. But I had X number of transactions last year. Where did those people come from? How did they learn about me? Why was I the realtor, right? Like they decided to pick. It all starts somewhere before they make the decision to hire you. So how do they first learn about you? When you go through your data and realize what sources are actually working, it is going to open up your eyes to stuff that is sitting right there that you've been missing and not paying attention to, and probably more likely in some cases of people who've referred you, neglecting. So it's really important for us to understand a big miss that I see people have in trying to generate more referrals is that they just don't start at the easiest place, which is, where are your clients coming from now? And if any of the last 3 to 4 years of those clients have come through referrals, then start with identifying who those referral sources are. Once you know clearly who your referral sources are, and you're looking at this list of people who've given you clients easily, you're going to be like, that is my business's biggest asset, and everything will change about how you'll view your ability to generate referrals.
I love the perspective. And I would imagine there's a great deal of confidence that comes from that, just the identification piece going, hey, something I'm doing is working because I'm getting referrals. So I just need to double down on those efforts, whether it's the networking, or joining the groups or whatever it is.
And I would say in that regards, right? So a lot of times, depending on how long you've been in business, sometimes you're referred just because people know you've been in business forever. But if you were to cultivate a relationship with those people, is there other referrals you've been missing out on because they just happen to remember you every once in a while to refer you? But if you really look back at who's referred you in the past, this is the pattern you're going to identify. Oh, I know these people. And I have a relationship with these people, and these people trust me because they were a client and they know the work that I do, because we used to work together at our formal corporate jobs, and they just really have a lot of respect for my work ethic, or whatever it is. People who refer you have a relationship with you. Right now, if you're newer in the business and your referrals are coming from, hey, I joined this one leads group and 4 people in that leads group started referring me, then obviously if you need more referral sources, groups like that may work for you, right? It's all about figuring out what has worked and then, like you said, doubling down on that strategy. But just remember, from a referral source perspective, people only refer you because you have a relationship with them. So if they happen to refer you once or twice and you don't really have a relationship with them, oh my gosh, why in the world would you not go try to strengthen that relationship to see if you could get more referrals? Like that to me seems like a no-brainer.
And in your program, you're teaching your clients how to strengthen those relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I always talk about when people are going through the program, I'm like, it's going to be real easy till you get to module 3. And then in module 3, we're going to build your referral plan. We're going to build your memorable and meaningful touch point plan. About 4 to 8 touch points per year, depending on what you do, dictates how many touch points a year you need. Most people will fall in 6 to 8 touch points. And then there's a very specific way that I teach of how we build this so that it can be meaningful and memorable. It will feel and be authentic to you to execute on, and it'll come from a place of thankfulness and gratitude, never ever manipulation. And so when we build that plan together, most people get crazy excited because they're like, I can do this. This stuff looks fun. This stuff looks way better than like pounding the phones all day long for 40 dials a day. And so there is this ability. I mean, it's for some people, creativity is kind of their jam. And so they run through module 3, and other people have to kind of like spend a little bit of time thinking about it. We give ideas, we give samples, we give a brainstorming process we tell people to go through. Everybody's plan is going to have the same 4 must-haves, but how they have the other 2 or 3 or 4 touch points may look a little different depending on themselves. And there's a strategy that we teach behind how someone builds this through. So if you just go through that, you're going to be like, at the end of it, like, oh, got it. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. I know that this can be overwhelming for people when they're building out their plan for the very first time. So for first year students, I review everyone's plan. The way my system is built, my program is built on the platform, they upload it to the portal, and then I go through and review it. And I'm very, very blunt. I try to be as kind as possible, but I'm very blunt about, nope, this won't work because of this and this. This looks great. I would suggest moving this or moving that, because I know getting this right the first year, if we're building a wash, rinse, repeat model for year 2, and then of course in year 3 and year 5 and year 10, that we want to get it right the first year.
So is it possible? So let's say I'm a veteran agent. I've been doing this 10 years or so. I'm pretty successful, but I haven't established this referral piece. And then I get introduced to you and are encouraged by somebody to take your program. And I'm scared to death because I just had this perception that part of the piece is you're going to ask me to reach out to my sphere of influence who I've neglected for the last 10 years. Like I want agents that if you close with me, it was a great experience, but hey, you're probably not going to hear from me again. And I'm just scared to death because I know I've neglected these people. Are you telling me it's still possible to turn that situation around?
Yes, when we're going to look at it though in 2 ways. So the first way we're going to look at it is some people come into the program and they identify who their previous referral sources are. And then they look at that list and they're like, oh crap. There are people on this list that referred me a year ago or 2 years ago, and I'm pretty sure I haven't talked to them since. Like, I don't even know if I sent them a thank you note, right? And so when I talked about the 4 must-haves that every touch point plan or outreach plan has to have, the very first one I'm pretty much a stickler for, and it's called the kickoff card. And there are 2 different types of language that people do when they're writing these kickoff cards. One is like, hey, you've thanked somebody in the past, right? You're just kind of like setting the stage for the fact that you're going to just be a little bit more engaged with them, not like daily or monthly, right? But like a couple more times a year, you're going to be a little bit more engaged with them. We do not say that, but that's what the card language allows us to do. It's very subtle to just kind of set the stage of our gratitude regarding the referrals in the past. But that's the jumpstart card. There's another card called the elephant in the room, because we literally have to address the elephant in the room in the card before you're ever going to feel comfortable like continuing in your other 4 or 5 touch points throughout the year to doing them. If you don't acknowledge the fact, hey, you referred me, pretty sure I didn't thank you the way I should have. Like, we just own it. Because what I have found with people is if we own it in that language, most people are going to be like, oh my God, you did not have to send me that card, but that was really cool. And then every defense we've put up against why this is terrible comes crumbling down. We're like, you know what? I should write you a thank you note, even if it has been 2 years, and just tell you that I did appreciate that. And I'm sorry if I didn't do what I was supposed to do back then and properly thank you. So that language is specific to those situations. Now, the situation you addressed is for people who they've been a previous client, but maybe they've never referred me. And now I want to see if I can get them to refer me. We start really small here. There is actually a subset of the training program where we look back at clients and contacts that are not referring us, but we wish that they were. And we look back over that subset of those people and we break it down into really small entities. And we identify who are the people we wish were referring us. So when somebody would say, hey, you've got a database of 1,000 past clients, you should probably reach out to over the next quarter, reach out to all 1,000 of them by sending them an email. I would absolutely never tell you to do that. We're going to go in there and be like, why don't you give me your top 15 of this list that you think could refer you? And then I'm going to teach a system that's going to allow you to do normal, which is so important, normal, everyday language outreach that's going to work for you just to re-engage, right, on a level of seeing how they're doing. Stop worrying about the referral. You haven't talked to these people in 3 years. Don't expect it. And if you don't expect it, maybe you'll be surprised. But that is lowering our expectations and just reconnecting. And most people are okay with doing that if they're coming from a place of, I just want to see how you're doing. And I'm not going to talk real estate. I'm not going to talk about referrals because everybody else else is going to teach you, well, once you've engaged them in conversation, now hit them with the ask for a referral. And I'm going to say, don't you talk about it at all. You haven't earned the right. First of all, you've never earned the right to ask, but you haven't even earned the right to try to plant a referral seed with someone you haven't communicated to in 3 years. So let's figure out who of the 1,000 past clients you have, let's start with the first 5 or 10 or 15. And then once that's working, let's move on to the next. And most people do not need hundreds of referral sources. Most people need a couple of dozen. So imagine how much smaller I just made everything in your world if I'm thinking, yeah, you probably need somewhere, 12, 24, maybe 30 something referral sources to give you the referrals you're actually looking for on a year in and year out basis. Okay,
so I know that the vast majority of real estate agents, and we've talked about this already in this conversation, that believe that asking is the way to trigger referrals. It's the only way to do that. But you have your own trigger method. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the trigger method is really, it's first the identification of who your referral sources are. Then it's building out your referral plan. And the outreach that you're going to do, we call it the touch points in the program, but the outreach that you're going to build out over the course of a year, those 4 to 8, really 6 to 8 touch points in a year, those are going to build on themselves, right? And it's going to create this overall experience. And if you're using the right referral seed language, this whole referral plan becomes the trigger in and of itself. So how I teach to generate referrals is doing it completely opposite from all the other trigger methods, asking, paying, being promotional or gimmicky. And it creates just a new trigger method. It's just not one-to-one the way asking is, right? Asking is go ask that person for a referral and you'll get it or you won't, right? And let's be honest, 9 times out of 10, sometimes 10 times out of 10, you won't get it, right? And then if asking is your trigger, well, then you always have to be asking to be able to receive referrals. We create an experience for our referral sources and how we take care of them and how we use referral seed language that becomes an overall trigger that builds on itself throughout the course of a year. And then we do it, not just year 1, but we then do it again, year 2 and year 3 and year 4. And we make changes to it, we tweak to it, right? I mean, there's always a process behind that. But it's the overall referral plan and how you take care of your referral sources and the language that you use that becomes the ultimate trigger.
I love that. Yeah. So you've been using words like experience and memorable and meaningful. Really what you're describing is, you're just making a valuable investment in people.
You hit the nail on the head because I like to say, we're just going to go back to being a good person, right? Like at the end of the day, we're actually just going to take business back to caring about other people and thanking other people for what they do for our business. And what people don't realize is that we're so deprived of that in the world today that when it happens, we're like, oh my God, I got a handwritten thank you card. I don't know the last time I've gotten a handwritten thank you card, right? That wasn't actually a ploy for me to do something or buy something, right? So the idea here is that the concept of referrals, because they're based in relationships, you got to be a good human in those relationships, which just means you got to take care of people, which for most people is very easy to understand. Where they struggle is in their willingness to be consistent in their execution of being a good person and taking care of those people, which is why one of the things we teach in the Growth by Referrals program is, hey, you've identified your referral sources, great. You've built your referral plan, awesome. Nothing's going to happen if you don't do anything. So we actually have an entire module that's around, now let's get this built and systematized in your workflow processes so those touch points that you've mapped out will actually happen. And that's an important piece too. And there's an accountability piece that comes behind that where you upload your results every 3 months of the referrals received and the touch points you've done, which kind of keeps you honest, right? Of are you doing it? And I mean, I have so many students that will reach out and be like, I was going gangbusters with my touch points for the first 8 months of the year. I was getting these referrals. It was great. She was like, and then I kind of fell off the wagon and I didn't do it as much. And I'm like, are we getting back on the wagon? And they're like, well, yeah, because I could see the difference, right? I mean, consistency is always an issue and something we always have to pay attention to. So, I mean, that's a really valuable piece that I tell people is I love when people come into the program and they have these great results their first year. I just don't care about them as much. What I care about is when you're in the program and you're now in your 3rd year or your 6th year, right? And you're generating the referrals you need every year to build the type of practice you want to have. That's where I get excited because then I now know I've been a piece of building and creating sustainability of growth in your business in a way that sometimes some of the other tactics can't provide.
I like the word, the most powerful word I think you've used during this interview, which I have connected with the most, is the word fun. can make this process fun, because the pain, you've talked about pain and pain points and, the pain of asking. It's very painful to agents. And, a lot of times it comes down to if an agent isn't having success, it's because of, the fear, the pain of fear. They don't like to prospect. They don't want to ask for business. They feel embarrassed, or they feel like there's this level of shame there of asking. And you're just totally flipping the script to where it's fun. It's fun to execute. You do have to execute. Like, you can't sit there and wait. So you got to execute. But you're telling me there's some fun ways to execute that are going to allow me to build a business that I never even thought was possible.
Absolutely. I like that you said, I got to execute, right? Because there's work involved in everything that's actually worth it. I mean, the only place, I don't remember which famous football coach said this, I always forget, but the only place, right, where success comes before work is in the dictionary, right? Maybe that was Vince Lombardi or somebody said it, right? Like, the truth is there's absolutely work involved. And maybe not every touch point you do is going to be super, super fun, but a lot of them are. I mean, there's been times where I've been doing my touch points and I'm like rolling laughing because it's just so funny and just so fun to do. And there's other ones where I'm like, wow, I got to write a whole bunch of cards. I'm like, my hand is going to hurt. And then I'm like, did I just complain about writing cards to people who have made my life and my business grow, made my life easier, made my business grow? Like, then you kind of like slap yourself. You're like, what am I thinking? So yes, it is fun, but it's still work. And that's an important piece for people to understand. This is not a build it and they will come. This is a build it and execute on it and make sure you're following the process correctly, and then they will come.
Well, what about this? So I am a big introvert, and people are surprised when they hear me say that, because, I do have a very outgoing personality. I am all over social media with content. But if you put me in a room where I know nobody, so you're coaching me and you're like, Jason, you got to go join some networking events or groups. And I'm like, oh my gosh, to me, that's like nails on a chalkboard. Can this program still work for me, who is this classic closet introvert?
Yes. I actually have a podcast episode on my podcast. It's called Roadmap to Grow Your Business. And I don't know what episode it is, but you can search for it. And it is that actually personality doesn't have anything to do with your ability to generate referrals. An introvert can have deep relationships just like an extrovert. And let's be honest, probably better, right? Because introverts are just better listeners. So I'm extroverts, you can have great relationships too. That's not what I meant. I'm an extrovert. But the reality of it is personality. Referrals aren't based on your personality. They're based on the relationships that you have with people. So when we're building out your plan of what's the touch points going to look like, we give so many different ideas, because for some people, they don't want to do an event. Like, if you say, I need you to throw an event for 400 people, they're like, shoot me now. Guess what?
Right.
Then don't throw an event, right? I had one, this is one of my favorite students, just because her responses to things that I say is hilarious. And she's been in the program now 6 years, and she has crazy results every single year. And I remember when she first got started, she was like, you tell me I have to go join a bunch of networking groups, or I have to go out to a bunch of networking events, and you might as well just pull my fingernails off right now. She's like, because I'm not doing it. And she's a big introvert, and she's probably one of the best people that I know, and is lovely to hang out with and builds great relationships. And she's crushing it with her referrals every year, right? Because she built a plan that works for her. So there are things for everybody in terms of your personality and your comfort level, but also your budget, right? If I told everybody in the program, you've got to go through an event for 100 or 400 people, some people will be like, not doing it because I hate events. And other people will be like, I ain't got that kind of money, right? So there are different things that you can do based on what you're comfortable with. And we build everything in the program for your referral plan based around these 3 platinum principles. And one of the platinum principles is, it better be authentic to you. Like, you better be, platinum principle number 2 is, you got to be willing to do it, because you have to do it. And so you got to be authentic to yourself. I mean, I worked with one guy once who was like, listen, I go home every day at 5:00, and I am not interested in having to take people to drinks, or having to buy tables at nonprofit galas, or having to do like meet and hang out with people after work hours, because at 5:00, I want to be home with my family, throwing the baseball with my son in the front yard, or hitting the tennis ball with my daughter. Like, I want to be a dad. That is most important to me. And so when he built his plan, I was like, you have to keep that in mind. You have to build things that allow you to connect in other ways. What most people think is that there's only 1 or 2 ways to connect. There aren't. There are so many ways to connect. And we talk about those categories inside my program so that people can figure out what works best for them, not just personality, but also budget.
Okay. One last question, and we do need to kind of close this out. But what if I've just moved? I know a lot of agents are relocating to different markets. They're in search of a higher price point, a bigger pool to fish in, whatever the case may be. Sometimes their spouse is moving and they're moving with their spouse and they're in a whole new market. Is there a system for this agent who is in a city where they maybe know their spouse and one other person?
Definitely. So do you remember how I talked about there's a subset of the training that kind of walks through like how we identify people that we want to become our referral sources? Well, in that training, it's that idea of, some of this is if you don't know anybody in an area, you're going to have to do some things that everybody would have to do to go meet people, right? There's no like magic bullet here. Like if you don't know anybody, you need to go do the normal things you would do to go meet people, right? And maybe that is attending the neighborhood barbecue, or maybe that is joining the Chamber of Commerce or your local real estate association or whatever it is. There are some things you're going to have to do when you know no one. But there's a subset training that I take people through. So like one way we look at our referral strategy, one layer is, hey, I have referral sources. Let me get more from them. Another way we look at our layered approach is that, hey, I don't have any referral sources or I need more. What's the process to turn someone into a referral source? And so we look at that process, and it is great for people who are newer and getting started. But the reality of it is that training still starts with your ability to identify people you want to refer you, which means you may need to go join, right, a women's group or a gym or other different types of organizations that are out there where you can start meeting people to start identifying, hey, what if that person were referring me? Because the truth is, like, you can't just magically make this stuff appear. There is a little bit of that underlying of, hey, you're new to an area. It's time for you to do some work to get to know people, right? And then from there, once you start to know people, you'll start to be able to identify, okay, who could start referring me? And then from there, it's like, okay, now here's a very specific process I teach for how to turn those people into referral sources. I think the biggest misnomer that a lot of agents hear is that, hey, if you just tell people you're a realtor, the leads, the referrals, they'll just roll on in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just not true. Guess what? Do you know how many realtors, when we sold our house in December of last year and bought a new house this year in June, do you know how many realtors I know? Do you know how many? So many, like so many. And do you know how many realtors we use to buy and sell a house?
One.
And the same one, right? Like the truth is that when you're in a crowded marketplace, you have to make sure that you are controlling, and that sounds like a weird word, but like that you are actually managing and controlling the relationships with the people that could actually refer you, meaning you don't neglect them and you take care of them and you're a good person in that regards. And so when you don't know anybody, there is a little bit of like, hey, you're going to have to go meet some people. And then luckily there's a process you can follow to hopefully quickly turn them into referral sources.
I love it. All right. So I'm listening to this. I'm fascinated. I want to learn more about your program. Where do I go? Where do I go to learn more?
If you are listening to this and you're like, I want to know the details, what are they right now? You can go to the website, which is growthbyreferrals.com. It's the name of the program, Growth by Referrals, but it's growthbyreferrals.com, which is a great place. If you want to join, we'd love to have you. Can't wait for you to join. You can go join whenever you're ready. But that's not actually the place I tell people to start, unless you know you want in. The place I tell people to start is actually to take this referral ninja quiz that I have. It's 9 simple questions that'll help you understand what level are you actually really truly at when it comes to being able to generate referrals. And where I want you is to be a referral ninja master. But 80-something% of you, because that's how many, when we look at the thousands of people who have taken this quiz, that's how many of you land, about 80%, 80 to 83% land at the beginner level. And if you take that quiz, and it's free, it's 9 simple questions, and if you're honest, you take that quiz and you get your real results, you're going to know exactly what level you're at. And then you're going to get a roadmap that shows you, okay, you're a beginner. Here's how we get you to the master level. And then you get to decide, okay, do I want to do the work? And if you want to do the work, great. There's lots of free resources, Facebook group. I have a book that you can buy anywhere books are sold. I have a podcast you can listen to. Or if you want to move a little faster, then of course you can come on into the program. But I think it's a better place for you to know where to start. So you just go to referralquiz.com. That's referralquiz.com. Take the 9-question quiz and figure out what level you're at, and then make a decision of where do I want to go from here.
All right. So I'm going to share that link big time on across social media groups and everything. So I think this is a great, at least a great conversation to people to have, like, with themselves. Like, where do I fall on this scale? Most of us are, not black belts. What are we, green belts? I don't know. Like, what's a low belt?
Yes. So it doesn't follow karate or taekwondo colors. These are actually just colors that I like. But the beginner belt color for me with the referral ninja quiz is a green belt, and the master level is actually a red belt.
Oh, okay.
It's colors I like. So
well, I'm personally going to take the quiz, and I'm going to encourage everybody that I know in my real estate networks to take the quiz and get started with this. And hopefully we'll be having lots more conversations in the future with Stacey Brown Randall. And then let's just round this out one more time with the websites and how people can find you on social media and Instagram and all that stuff.
Yep. So if you just search my full name, Stacey Brown Randall, you're going to find me on almost all the platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Of course, there is a free Facebook group, Referrals Without Asking. You can search for that. My home base is my website, StaceyBrownRandall.com. And just remember, when you are searching for me, always include an E, because Stacey is spelled with an E.
Ooh, that's good. All right. So you're saying we can join this referral group just right now? Like we could jump in there and request membership?
You can, yep. So the free Facebook community is called Referrals Without Asking. It's a great place to start. You're going to be asked to take the quiz and then tell me what your level is when you're requesting entrance into the group, when you're requesting to join. And then, of course, there is units in there that will walk you through based on what level you are to help you get some more knowledge and stuff. So there's lots of free, great resources in the Facebook group. It's also when I do my live challenges or I do some on-demand training and things like that. It's all in that group as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, I can't wait to join that. And thank you so much. This has been just like a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. I know it's going to change some mindsets about referrals.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Impact Agent Podcast. If you liked the show and got something out of it, please like the Impact Agent Podcast on Facebook and rate and review the show on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. This really helps us grow the show and helps other agents find it. Please share it with your friends and coworkers as well. You want us to deliver the show to you via email every week? Then email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com and we'll send you the show every week. Please let us know what you think about the show, what you like, what you don't, or possibly make a suggestion about a topic you want to hear. Email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com or leave us a message on Facebook at Impact Agent Podcast. Until next week, everybody be productive, safe, and happy, and always keep learning. This podcast is produced by Johnny Gwynn at Deep Pride Studios in Mobile, Alabama, and is paid for and powered by ImpactAgentUniversity.com.